Hi and welcome back to the Quarry garden, and I'm standing in one of the 4 borders in the white garden. It's not very white this time of year, lots of lovely lush growth but nothing white, so what I'm trying to do is extend the flowering season, and hopefully in the shot you can actually see a clematis that I've got to add, and that's Avalanche, and it's an evergreen clematis here in my part of the world, but it's a stunner. And I could just think climbing up this obelisk next to this climbing rose this time of year will just really add a punch to the garden. So I'm going to add that first. And obviously, like all clematises, you want to have a very deep planting hole because they like to be planted really deep. And that will help if you ever get that dreaded clematis wilt, which will kill off all of the growth for that year. But if it's really deep in the ground, it will grow back from the base of the plant again. So that's what I'm doing now. So anyone unfamiliar with clematis wilt, it's a fungal disease. And as far as I'm aware, it does tend to affect only the large flowering types of clematis. It's not something I've suffered with here in the Quarry garden. But then again, I don't have too many clematises yet. Something I want to change. Anyhow, back to this one. I haven't added anything, any fertiliser or anything to the planting hole. It's really nice and deep, and that's mainly because the soil around here, I've added to it over the last few years lots of farmyard manure and compost when I've been preparing the soil around here for the white garden. So I'm not adding anything else, just basically putting it into the hole, leaving it on its trellis. And that's because I want to change these metal obelisks in the autumn time. I want to get something larger and something taller, and you can actually see this climbing rose is starting to outgrow it. But never mind, so that's basically it. And then just backfill around. And one other thing to add, clematises like to have their roots shaded in the summer months as well. Top in the sun, but the roots, they like to be shaded, so add a good layer of mulch. I actually add a very small stone over the top of the roots in the height of the summer just to keep them shaded from the hot sun, and that's basically it. So let me give you some plant particulars on this clematis. It's called Clematis Avalanche. It's evergreen and it's spring flowering, doesn't repeat flower. Has an evergreen leaf, certainly in my climate. Hardy between -7 and -10, but that's a UK rating. It will stay evergreen, certainly here. Gorgeous white flowers. Grows to about 2 metres, about 6 feet, about 6 to 7 feet. It'll grow right through this climbing rose. Flowers between March and May. Certainly will do well here in partial shade because the flowering will be over with before the full leaf canopy is out. Stunning, and I love it, and I can't wait for it to climb all the way to the top of this obelisk. Anyhow, let's see what else we've got to plant today in the white garden. So the next 2 plants that I'm adding are both biennials, and what I mean by that is that you actually sow the seed, they'll establish roots, they will produce leaves, but they won't actually flower until the following year. And the first one that I'm adding is this very beautiful plant on its own without any flowers. And this is Lychnis Alba. It's got very tactile, grey, furry leaves. Gorgeous on its own. And that's what I'm trying to do, introduce grey coloured plants here into the white borders. I'm going to plant them around these thalia daffodils. Now this particular plant, although it will die off after the 2nd year, sometimes you actually get it running into a 3rd year. It is a very short-lived perennial, but if it likes the conditions that you provide, it will self-seed everywhere. Loves free draining soil, sun to partial shade. Flowers will be about 2 to 3 feet in height, tiny, very small, dainty white flowers, multiple flowers on each flower stem. And if you cut the flower spikes back when they're spent, it will continue to bloom all summer long. It's a great value perennial, and such a pretty one at that. Hopefully it will self-seed around all throughout this white border, so I can actually lift the young seedlings later on next spring and move them to the other side. Fingers crossed that it self-seeds. The second one is a foxglove. Who doesn't love a foxglove? I've yet to speak to anyone who doesn't love a foxglove, and this one's a pure white one because I actually seeded this last spring. And the only way you can guarantee that it's pure white is to do it that way. If you lift seedlings around from the garden that have self-sown, the chances are that it would be a blotchy, or it'll have blotches on it. But I don't mind that. I'm really not that much of a purist. However, the easy way to tell, probably one of the native ones that we have here, is the difference in the stem colour. Look at those stems running through into each of the leaves, purple, bright purple, compared to the white, pure white of that one. Easily distinguishable between the two, purple and white. But again, obviously, if you're a purist and you want pure white, you'd have to obviously grow them from seed. So I'm going to add them here as well. So they grow in amongst all of these umbellifers and these allium bulbs, these allium flowers. So that's it. But what I get asked an awful lot is, what flowers do you actually grow? What's the list of flowers you have in your white garden? And to possibly help anyone that's wanting to develop a white border or a white garden, I'm going to produce a number of very short videos, which will be my top 5 shrubs, my top 5 flowering bulbs, top 5 perennials, probably top 10 perennials. There's so many gorgeous white perennials. Shrubs, climbers, I think you get the idea. But there'll be short videos just with a list of plants, and I'll show you pictures of what they actually look like growing in my garden. I'll keep it quite general because obviously a lot of the plants that I grow may not grow in the conditions that you garden in, such as the primulas at the top, which self-seed around easily for me because this section of the garden floods every year, and that's why I have thousands of primula seedlings. I'll try and keep it very generalised, plants that will grow in any condition in most gardens. But I thought now to end, I'll give you a glimpse of the Quarry woodland, because this time of year it looks stunning with the purple, purpley blue bluebells. They said purple bells, bluebells, and also a glimpse of what the spring border currently looks like. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you soon.